we have seen an economic recovery, economic growth in Venezuela since, according to GDP numbers, since 2021. We had 2021 and 2022, double-digit growth regarding GDP. It got stagnated on 2023. We had a 0% economic growth regarding GDP on 2023. And on 2024, we're poised to grow between, let's say, 4% and 10% on this current year. However, some economists might argue that what we are seeing right now is not economic growth, is not real economic growth, it's just what is called in economics the dead cat bounce. And today we're going to discuss.
Welcome to Venezuela Insider, the only place in Venezuela for expats, digital nomads, entrepreneurs, investors, travelers, and related internationals. For more information, venezuelainsider.com.
In case you are not familiar with the term, the dead cat bounce is a metaphor that we use in economics, also in investing and trading, regarding when you have an asset that is falling and has fallen greatly regarding their price or their value of their, of course, the number that you want to appoint to a particular asset or any given particular economy in this case, and suddenly falls, and after that it falls greatly, let's say 50%, and after that it suddenly grows 20%. That is far from the valuation that I had previously. However, it was a vigorous bounce that the price action did for the particular asset or a particular economy. That is what is called the dead cat bounce. And regarding Venezuelan economics, you see the chart of any given economics within Venezuela. You see we had a violent decrease on GDP growth, around 80%. And we have seen some steady growth on the past few years. So many will argue that the economic growth that we had in the past few years is not growth at all, it's just a recovery, a sudden recovery is the dead cat bounce. Well, and anyone who makes this argument, he has a good point, I have to say. However, I will say it's real growth, and here's why. First, the levels that we had prior to the collapse were due mostly to the price of crude oil worldwide, internationally. And what happened then is that at the moment, Venezuela produced a little bit under 3 million barrels of crude oil per day, mostly for export. And at the moment, the international price of crude oil was very skewed due to many things that happened. It was a commodity super cycle back then on the early 2000s, early 2010s. And we had the war on Libya and other places in the Middle East. And of course, we had the thing in Iraq and so on. And that made a spike on the price of crude oil. And at the moment, of course, and still, the Venezuelan economy, the GDP, around 90%, is tied to the oil economy. So the Venezuelan economy goes as the oil economy goes as well. Now, that happened back then. What used to happen is that the non-oil sector was disregarded and played a second fiddle. And since the past 5 or 6 years, the Venezuelan non-oil industry, I'm talking services, leisure and hospitality, manufacturing, imports, whatever might be the case, basically any industry that is not the oil industry, has been taken more in consideration and is slightly contributing more to the Venezuelan GDP. Of course, the things mostly are going to go as the oil industry goes. Now, what also could happen could be a synergy between the oil industry and the non-oil industries, because there are a bunch, of course. So what creates, and what made Venezuela a very prosperous nation for Latin American standards on the past decades prior to the crisis is that the oil revenue come here to the country, and that created the incentives in order to consume, to invest, and so on other industries within Venezuela. Now, what happened on the, let's say, early 2000s, and I would say in the 90s as well, is that, of course, most people put emphasis on the oil industry, disregarding the non-oil industries, different industries in the country. So what can happen again, hopefully, is that the non-oil industry will be more taken into consideration. That actually happened between 2018 and 2022. The non-oil industry can be further growing and also be adapted to new trends worldwide that have been applied successfully on the rest of the world and can be applied in Venezuela as well, because there are business models, economic models that can be replicated successfully in the Venezuelan economy. The first example that I use as a poster child is the ride-sharing services. They have been very successful all over the world. And in Venezuela, on the past, let's say, 2 or 3 years, have been replicated successfully. And that can happen with many other industries, many other services that can be offered within the country and be replicated with the same level of success. And right now that we have more IT involved on the economics overall, the past 10, 15 years, so tech companies maybe can expand their operations within the country, offering their services, and these services will be taken gladly by the Venezuelan consumer. Of course, you have to adapt it to the Venezuelan reality, and that will be the key difference between the successful cases, like the ride-sharing services that, for instance, yet again, they have been successful. There are 2 or 3 names, household names right now, that were unknown just 2 or 3 years ago. And they were successful because they applied the successful business model that was successful in the United States and Europe and other places in Latin America with the Venezuelan nuances. And that's the key issue. If you can adapt a successful business model elsewhere at another country, in Venezuela, combined with the Venezuelan nuances, you can have a successful business model that can actually make you quite wealthy or make you more wealthy in the country. The bottom line is that a debt cat pounds, well, of course, the economy, when you allow it to grow again, because we have to remember that the 80% GDP collapse that we had, it was first, well, of course, due to the collapse on the price of crude oil internationally, also the collapse on the oil industry on the country, but mostly because of the bad habits that the Venezuelan government had back then, and they did it on purpose because they want political power, and for them the most important thing is political power. Okay, it is what it is. However, right now, since they already have a very good grasp on the political power in Venezuela, right now they need to take care of the economics, because that will keep the people in power for years to come, and they need to do something with the economy, at least have some stable economy. So you combine that with the development of the non-oil industry and the further development of the oil industry, the recovery on the oil industry, I have to say. Combined with that is that we can have a sustained economic growth in years to come.
Thank you for watching Venezuela Insider. Please like, share, and subscribe. Follow us on social media. If you want to work with us, VenezuelaInsider.com. Thanks again, and have a nice day.